I found a way.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are across the world. I'm joined today by a rapper, producer, UK hip hop pioneer, Blade.
How you doing, bro? You good?
Welcome to the show,
Excellent.
man.
Sorry, I just knocked the microphone, but yo, that shows how us hip hoppers are rogue in it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And a guy that knows how to roll with the punches and deliver punches as well, like you did in this single, your first single, Lyrical Maniac. So I listened to that and then really just try to get the vibe of who you are as an artist. And there's even some prophetic things you say. There's a part where you repeat the word TikTok a couple of times, way before the age of social media and digital distribution at all. And so it's just interesting because hip hop has a way of being culturally relevant, politically relevant, and various other forms of relevance. But you as an artist, talk to me a little bit about what gave you your inspiration for your start in hip hop. Talk to me a little bit about home, where you came from, and how that helped to shape you as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I was born in Iran, in Tehran. By the age of 3.5, I was sent to India to study.
Oh, wow.
Basically because there was some kind of revolution stuff going on. And by the time you're 5 years old, you're ready to go into the army. And I guess my parents didn't really want that for me. So they sent me for an education in India. I would stay there as a boarding student, but I would come back for the holidays.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Then, by the time I was 7, I got sent to London, and I went to boarding school there. For the first couple of years, I went back for the holidays,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden, things changed in the country, and I was no longer able to go back.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was literally living in the boarding school at the time. So when I was growing up, I have to be honest and say, watching all the other kids in the school and watching other kids on the streets with parents and stuff, I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt like my parents didn't want to know. I didn't understand the reason for all these things happening.
Yeah.
But I remember as a kid, when the kids used to leave for the holidays or the weekends or whatever, I used to stand outside with some of my friends to say goodbye, and there's a lineup of cars, parents,
Wow.
chauffeurs coming to get their kids and whatever. And I used to just stand there, and I would be pretty much the first person there saying goodbye to people, and I'd be the last one standing there, just watching everyone's gone, and I'm there thinking, okay. So I would spend the holidays in the school, and that became my home. That was my home. One day, one of the kids' mothers came up to me and said, "Why are you always like the last one here? You know, what's going on? Where's your parents?" kind of thing. Obviously, I said, "I don't know," kind of thing. And next minute, I'm being invited into their house for the half terms.
Oh, wow.
So, I got to understand a little bit of the family unit, which I never understood before. So I guess growing up, it was kind of a little bit of a lonely existence, because when all the other kids have gone and they're doing what they're doing, I'm left in the school on my own with my two brothers that basically were doing what they were doing. And I was out in the playground kicking a tennis ball against a wall. And that's all I was doing.
So independence for you has always been a thing that's been ingrained.
100%. It's sometimes in life you don't have a choice. But I tell you what, when you feel like a rat cornered, like you have to fight your way out of that corner.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like I had to do from day one.
I see a lot of labels on you right now. I see you representing 521. Talk to me a little bit about what that means to you. What's the significance of these numbers?
Okay, so as an artist, so if I backtrack it,
Yeah.
ever since day one, and I'll keep saying day one, but ever since day one, my senses, let me call it senses, my senses told me there was a lot of things within the entertainment world that I wasn't content with.
Yeah.
For example, I was watching artists performing and all that, but I was kind of hearing through the grapevine from other people who were trying that were struggling. So I was thinking, okay, is this like a hierarchy thing?
Yeah.
Is this a thing where certain people get a push in and other people get blocked?
Yeah.
Because let's be real, quite a lot of the people that I knew that were good weren't getting recognized, but quite a lot of people that I didn't think were that good were getting recognized.
Yeah.
So we can throw in names like Danny Minogue, Kylie Minogue, all them people, Jason Donovan. It's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that some of the guys that we hear on a street level are not better than them.
Let me say something real quick. There's this group named Street Sounds that, if I'm not mistaken, reached out to you when they caught wind of the fire that it was that made you the rapper that you are, the artist that you are.
No, that's not correct.
Break down the
Okay,
reality
so I'll break
then.
it down. So first of all, Street Sounds is a record label. It's not a group. And basically, I was already on the streets. Right? If we go right back to the beginning, I was already rapping, beatboxing, breakdancing, doing graffiti. The only thing in hip hop I didn't do when I was in the boarding school was DJing because we didn't have access to the turntables.
Yeah.
However, we did have a belt-driven turntable in the school, so we used to go out and buy little 7-inch records, 12-inch records, albums, whatever we could, when we could. Right? It depends how quick we got the money and whether it was legal money or not. Right? And then, or whether the records were picked up and sold, because back in the days, the records were in the shelves with the records in them.
Yeah.
So we could just literally walk in and take it, and and sometimes we did that.
Yeah.
Not all the shops did that, but some did. You just had to figure out which ones were the ones doing it.
I'm with you.
So we used to then take the records back to the boarding school
Yeah.
and literally on a belt drive, wait for the needle to go down, the slow journey, wait for the needle to go down and just start going chicka, 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 not realizing that we needed a mixer in the middle too.
Yeah, to make it fade.
Yeah,
To do it.
and we're like, how come it's making them other noises that it shouldn't be making? That's in my so yeah. So that's basically what we were doing. So we started all of this in the boarding school. Then it evolved into when I left the boarding school. Obviously, I was in my flat. I was meeting other people that were like-minded. Then we started hanging around with a group of people in Woolwich. So big up to Merlin and the whole of the Mafia posse. Big up to Starlight Assault Squad, SAS, the original SAS. So Joel, Val, Chris, Tony, Seb, all of you, and Ricky as well, who was there from time to time. Plastic Money, DJ Plastic Money. So these are all the guys that took me under their wing, and they basically got me to practice with them, which was the beginning. Yeah, where I started to get my confidence, because if you weren't good, they'd let you know.
On top.
And yeah, so we used to go there and practice an hour, 2 hours, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, sometimes whatever we could, and we evolved from that. So while all this was going on, I went to Cherry Orchard Estate in Charlton, and I went to see a friend of mine who was actually the lady who used to do who used to do the cooking in the school. And I was the dishwasher.
Whoa.
I used to do dishwashing in the school. So we became friends. She had her 2 kids and her husband. Used to go there and from time to time hang out with them and whatever. And one day I've gone there, told them I'm coming. I've gone there and she's not there. No one's there. So I'm waiting, thinking, okay, they're probably going to shops. They'll come back in a minute. So I'm waiting. And while I'm waiting, their flat is on the 2nd floor and there's a balcony, right, that looks down onto the street.
I could envision what you're saying.
In the estate, in Cherry Orchard Estate. So for anybody who knows Cherry Orchard Estate, big you up as well, because that was a beginning point for me as well. That took me on to the next level, recognizing that I could do more. So I'm, by this time I'm already doing shows and stuff, because I've already been doing loads of shows in the school. We used to have school discos. We used to have talent competitions, all that kind of stuff. So we were doing all of this. Black Blue Coat as well, the talent competition there, which is what I was just talking to Basement Jacks about. So, yeah. So we basically, I was standing outside their flat, looking over the balcony, and I'm beatboxing and rapping to myself fairly loud, because there's nobody around. So I'm like, yeah, I can make some noise. And then this guy comes out. Got a big afro, black guy. He's got a big afro. I forget his name. It's either Morgan. No, it wasn't Morgan, because that was Morgan Khan. It wasn't Morgan. It was Peter. I'm pretty sure it was Peter. But we're going back 40 years.
Yeah,
that's a long time ago.
That's cool.
Right. So yeah, Peter comes out and he goes, "Do you do that all the time?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Do it again." So I've done it again, and he goes, "You're really good. You should go and check our streets out." I work for them.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know if there was truth to him working there or not, because I never saw him there when I went, but I've only been there once, maybe twice, maximum. So that basically evolved into me going to Street Sounds with Damien. Damien, what's going on? Damien was younger than me by a couple of years, but he was managing me. So Damien, big up Damien as well. So we went to Street Sounds for a meeting, and my understanding when I was there is there was a deal on the table, but they were talking about 2%. I'm young. I'm like 17 at the time, and I'm thinking 2%. Screw that. I can do better myself. You know what I mean? So obviously, a little bit of conversation. I don't recall the entire conversation. It doesn't matter.
No.
What matters is that I got up and said, you and left.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, no.
So basically, what happened, and I've put this story up on my Instagram as well, is I walked out and waited for Damien. Then Damien comes outside and he says to me, Morgan Khan has basically said, you're not going to go nowhere because of your attitude. And I'm going, cool, whatever. I know what my goal is. I know what my direction is, whatever.
Yeah.
So let him think what he wants to think. You know, and then Damien goes, but in all honesty, if you carry on like this, then I can't manage it. Then I went, cool, you too. And I walked. But we were still friends. I still talk to Damien. Love the guy. He's a really good guy. You know what I mean? Him and his brother Daryl. And the family, the whole family is good. Like good people. But yeah, so I told Damien Damien's like, so how are you going to put your records out? And I said, I'll do it myself if I have to.
Yeah.
And he goes, how? And I go, I'll stand on the streets and sell the records if I have to.
Yeah.
And instantly I thought, brainstorm moment. I was like, oh shit, light bulb moment. So I started planning. Like I spent the next 3 years, like 2 years of that, I was a recluse. I was only hanging out with the producers that I was working with and people that were like-minded. And I wasn't telling too many people what I was doing, but I was telling people, do it yourself.
Talk to me a little bit about those times. Talk to me a little bit about those moments with those producers, the things that were special, because I know there's pain associated with some of the difficulties that you've overcome. But during those times in the booth where that pain is still raw, still fresh, did that come across in your material?
Interesting question. I would say when you're finding yourself, sometimes you don't know how to express that pain. So we were just making music because we enjoyed making music.
Yeah.
So I don't think we realized the pain till a few years later, right? But we didn't realize that with the way we were delivering things, even if the words weren't saying what they were supposed to be saying in terms of defining that pain, the emotions that were coming across on the mic.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's going to come through.
Yeah, the emotions are coming through, you know? And I'm sure a lot of people could hear that. And the interesting thing about that was that when the fans were hearing that, whether it was on stage years before I made a record or whether it was after I made a record, a lot of the people, what I noticed was there's a lot of kids going through the same thing.
Of course, man.
And they're listening to the message. Now imagine if we could go worldwide and put that product out there for the world, how many fans across the world we would have. The thing is, in America, the Americans got the push we never got. Yeah? There's a lot of artists in the UK that I can mention. Your Hijacks, your MC Merlin, your Gunshots, your Hard Noises, Demon Boys, London Posse, Outlaw Posse, you know, Cash Crew, everybody. There's so many of them, you know what I mean? Ruthless Rap Assassins. There's so many of them. So I can't like reel off everybody because it'll take time, right?
Yeah.
But they were all speaking to the youth and they all deserved an opportunity to shine. But we never got the same opportunity. And a lot of us were kids that didn't know what we were doing. Everything was trial and error. Yeah. When I decided to stand on the streets in 1986 and I worked my plans towards that, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know that 35 years down the line, people still going to be saying, you know what, you inspired me. That's why I run my record label. Yeah. I know magazines in Germany and record labels in Germany, MZ, On the Run, all of you guys. Right? I know record shops in Switzerland and stuff that started because of me. How do I know? Because they came to my flat and told me when it was all happening, you've inspired me. I still speak to some of those guys and we still talk about those days. One of them sells thousands and thousands of cans of paints every month because he started his business independently because of that.
Bro, you just read my mind because I was gonna say you've moved thousands and thousands of units yourself by your own sense of hustle and your sense of grit. So that's an inspiration for me because I do believe in independence. And I hate to know that there's a force or a source out there of gatekeeping that decides who does this or decides who does that. But you're revealing to me, which is obviously common knowledge for people in the industry, just how these companies can work. I'm going to mention a couple of names to you, these companies, and just give me your opinion on what you think of where we're going in terms of how music is distributed now. When I say the word Spotify, or where I say the word YouTube Music, or some of these other somewhat gatekeepers to a certain extent that determine what it is that customers are receiving. How do you, as an independent artist, feel like institutions like that are beneficial or harmful to the art form?
Okay, so let me start that by saying, you ever heard that saying, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder?
Yes, of course.
What I noticed over the years is most of the people that say that are the ugly people, right? So, so where I'm going with that is basically to say the people that are benefiting from that are not going to have a problem with it,
Yeah.
right? But the people that, do you understand where the
Oh,
connection is?
completely. I see
You
the
see the
direction you're
connection,
going and
yeah?
what it is you're explaining.
Right. So, but there are so many people who are on those platforms that don't get what they deserve. I mean, even the people that are getting something don't get what they deserve.
Yeah, I can understand
Right?
that as well.
So when I retired from music, and I remember I had Spotify, someone on Spotify reached out to me, I had iTunes reach out to me, and I told them I don't want my music on your platform. And I'd rather not get paid than to be part of your system. And this is before we knew anything they were doing, because I already sussed out that, you know what? I knew back then this wasn't about the artist, this was about the consumer. And let's be real, and I'm going to say this to most of you consumers, and I don't mean this to be rude, but stop being dumb to what they're doing to the artist. Stop being dumb to that, because there's a lot of artists' careers that are ruined. I know artists that have committed suicide because the opportunities they should have had, they never got. I can tell you one story right now. Yeah. If you want me to tell you the
Bro,
story.
your opportunity to say what you choose to say.
But okay, so this wasn't to do with Spotify or anything, but it was to do with record labels before Spotify, iTunes, all of that. There's one girl I was working with. I got introduced to by a friend. I was working with this girl. I only met her 3-4 times, and we got on. We clicked straight away. I went to her flat, sat there recording, writing, not recording, but writing, and she's an amazing producer, young, amazing producer, singer. Yeah, she wasn't rapping, she was a singer. So we're working. And I'm seeing like Natalie and Brugier vibe. You know what I mean? Like she's got that kind of vibe going on with her.
Kind of thing.
So I'm like, oh shit, this is dope. Anyway, we arranged to meet again a few weeks later. I've gone down and I've knocked on the door, nothing. I've knocked on the door again, nothing. Knocked on the door again, nothing. Then I remembered, oh, I've got a family member's number.
Okay.
So I've called a family member who lives not far, and they said, yeah, she's there. I go, she's not answering. So she's come round, opened the door, walked in, all I hear is a scream. Yeah. And basically, I've run in to see what the scream is about. And her sister's literally dead.
Wow.
Killed herself. A few days, maybe a week later, there's an A&R guy that I was talking to at the time, called me and said, I'm trying to get a hold of her. Where is she? Why do you want to try? Why are you getting a hold of her? Oh, because she came in with some tapes and stuff, and I know you're working with her, but, you know, she told me she's working with you, and obviously I know you. So, you know, what's happening? Where is she? Like, bro, what's it about? Well, we want to get her in to talk about a potential deal.
What a tragedy.
Yeah, but she lost faith in all of that and killed herself a week before somebody contacted her. So part of the journey for a lot of artists is going that distance and then giving up. When you've gone that far, don't give up. Yeah, but understand that it's not an easy journey. It's one of those journeys where if you ain't got that heart and you ain't ready for the battle, don't get into it.
You know what? Ladies and gentlemen, the account that Blade just gave about suicide is a real thing. So, just be aware of the pressures that it is that you're dealing with, and make sure that you're sharing that with someone. Make sure that whatever it is that you're going through, you're not going through that alone. Do what it takes to do that, because life in general and the industry specifically could be a very difficult place. So, bro,
But you know what? We haven't answered the question about Spotify and all that.
yeah, I'd love to finish that.
Right. So, yeah, basically, for me, Spotify is for the consumers. Netflix is for the consumers. All these things are for the consumers. There's a handful of artists that they put forward and go, these guys are successful. But how can you then justify when someone like Snoop Dogg saying, I done $1 billion and I'm getting 33 grand? You know, it's like whatever it is, the figures. I don't know the exact figures, but
Yeah.
you know, it's something
It's
along
not
those
necessarily proportionate to
It's
the
not proportionate.
to the downloads
But
or
then,
to the streams.
but then how do you explain that the CEO or the owner of Spotify is getting 350 million a year or whatever it is that he's getting?
I've
It
never
doesn't
heard
make
his
sense.
album at all. I never heard any music
Right,
from
there
that
you go.
guy.
So now compare that to a cab office. You got all the drivers, then you got the owner. The owner's earning a lot of money off of each cab driver, yeah? And the cab drivers are walking away with £200 a day, running around for the whole day. But the cab office, but the owner's sitting at home, basically not even there taking calls, but he's making off of every job that goes on.
So let me play devil's advocate. What if I were to say to you, hey, that is capitalism.
That is
That is the way that these companies were designed. It's about making money. At the end of the day, it's up to the artist whether they want to be a part of the platform or not. How would you respond to that type of
yeah,
attitude?
I fully agree with that. I think there's nothing wrong with doing what they're doing, like the cab office and whatever, right? But it's for the drivers to also recognize the opportunity and do more.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to be lazy and just sit back and drive and then complain about how much you're making, then you need to reanalyze what you're doing. So let me put that into perspective with artists. So you're on Spotify. You're sitting there and waiting for the money to come in. It's not going to come in. You need to go out there and do the work. You need to be plugged in, and against all the odds, you need to turn up at all the shows, all the events. And you know what? You just need to do better than your competition if you want to survive.
Yeah.
And this is, all's fair in love and war, right? So you just need to be better than the other people. Like that was my thing. It's like I've never been concerned about putting somebody else on my stage, whether they're known, unknown, because I know I can hold my own.
Now, let me ask you this, because you mentioned war, and to me, a very important side of war is your allies, the people that you've been able to click up with from day dot, the people that you believe, whether it's your family members or not, or people who have become your family members that will support you in your effort, that is like-minded, that believes in the same thing that you do. What people in your life, in your career, can you say has been part of that family to you?
The people that have been like, and some people come and go, some people stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I still talk to, say, for example, Master Mix from time to time. Yeah, big up Master Mix all day, every day. You believed in me when nobody else saw what was coming. Yeah. Also, big up to 2000 AD. You believed in me when no one else was seeing what was coming. You guys wanted to work with me from early. And I always big them up because, like, I feel like without people like that, maybe I wouldn't have got the confidence that I got. Because all it took was for somebody to go, you could do this. And even if the rest of the world said you can't do this, you still kind of thought, I could do this. Because one person believes in me.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when we end up getting more recognized, we got 1,200 people standing in our audience and you're performing, and 1,199 people are cheering for you, and one person screw facing on the left, and that's the person that stands out to you. You're like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Right. Do you understand?
Yeah, man.
So yeah. So there's other friends I've got. Lex. Always he stood on the streets and sold records with me. He used to be known by the name of 12 gauge back in the day. I'll tell the story one day. But Lex, probably my best friend right there. You know what I mean? We've been talking for years. We've never lost contact. Julian, same. Since we met, always been supportive. You got DJ Sam Seed, people like that. Dave Brooks. There's all these people that have basically, they call me on a regular basis and encourage me to keep going with what I'm doing. Yeah. And, like without them, I was trying to show you my website earlier that I'm building.
Yeah.
And
talk about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, your internet, man, in it.
You know, what can I say about that, man? The Wi-Fi does what it does, but the bottom line is the
Yeah,
site exists.
but your building is gatekeeping, bro. Right. So anyway, like I'll come to the website, but what I want to say about this whole Spotify thing and Netflix and all that, it works, right, for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. But what people need to realize it is, as I said, a consumer thing. It does very little for the artists, majority of them.
Yep.
That's in my opinion. A
Yes.
lot of people I see are struggling with it. You know, some people, they've got their business together, but I know one person who's got about 40 albums on there, and he's just about surviving, you know, just
40
making ends meet. Yeah. It's like, so, you know, all they're trying to do, right? And like I said, I don't have a problem with them setting up the business, but just be a bit more fair. 0.004% is not fair.
That's obvious, man.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be honest with you, there are men constantly thinking about other platforms or other alternatives where they feel like artists could be remunerated properly. And obviously, there isn't a fan out there in the world who wouldn't agree to that. Because usually when you're a fan of someone, you appreciate their well-being as well. It's not just the fact that they make great music that you like. You want to know that that person is doing well so they can continue to make the inspiring art that they've been making.
But let me go one step deeper than that, though, bro.
Sure.
Okay, so if you got Spotify, it would be less of a kick in the teeth if you didn't pay anybody anything,
Wow.
right? But I'll tell you what you do in return. You keep pushing people so that they got opportunities to do for themselves. Yeah? Don't pay them anything. Just promise them that you're going to push them a little bit further instead of only putting certain people on the playlist because they're on your payroll.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So there's record companies and whatever that are in bed with these people, and they're basically deciding what they push and what they don't push. They're also people that basically pay above the odds to advertise what they're doing, and there's no guarantees that the adverts are going to get them anywhere. And that happens with YouTube. That happens with Spotify. Obviously, we can't talk about Netflix on that because that's not what their model is. Yeah, but the other ones, I'm just saying, like for these artists that are basically like end of year putting up their streams and saying they got 2,000 streams. It's going to take you 500 years to see anything, bro. Like, wake up and smell the coffee. You're not going to see any money. You know, but, you know, if Spotify was a bit more fair, they might even actually turn around and go, right, instead of taking any money off you from the sales and whatever, let's just push you further.
Promotion.
Yeah.
Kind of like get the name out there.
Right.
Get the
How many times have you seen artists go out and do shows because they wanted the promotion and they don't get paid?
I've seen that before,
Right.
to be honest.
So don't pay people 0.04 pence. Give them more promotion, you know. But obviously, everyone wants money. But would you rather have this little change, or would you rather have them, or would you rather have your face being plastered on the opportunity without
the potential
all these?
Is much greater that
Right.
way, bro.
Without the algorithms blocking everything, you know, like you say one word out of context. Like, why is it okay for movies to be advertised with people getting shot in the head, buildings blowing up, people getting murdered, raped, all kinds of stuff, but a rapper just mentions the word, I could kill a mic. Yeah? And it's like, oh my God, you can't have that. How, you know, you mentioned the word kill. You know what I mean? I could murder that stage. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that censorship isn't taking into context what the rapper is saying. And I think that a lot of times these companies have this blanket approach to censorship where they're not taking into account the material that is actually being expressed.
But why are they taking it into account for the bigger companies though? Why are they allowing their adverts to go through?
It's selective.
Right.
I have
So
to
I'm
admit
saying
that.
stop the selective behavior, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's all I'm saying. But you know, like going back to my early days, like the thing that was for me was I was thrown into a situation. I was probably best way to describe it. I was thrown in the deep end. I had nothing. I didn't even, you know, when most of the people I knew had their families, I didn't even have that. Yeah, hip hop became my family. A lot of the fans that were there calling me up, you're my family. You're the people that kept me going. Yeah, music. When I met other people doing different genres of music, like the stereo MCs, they're my family. Do you know what I mean? Akeem Walter, you're my family. You know, Torch in Germany, you're my family.
Wow.
DJ Nail in Switzerland, you're my family. Even if I don't speak to you every day or I haven't spoken to you in 10 years, these are the people that are the family. These are the people that mean more to me than my direct brothers and sisters.
Wow, you're
You
saying a
know,
lot,
and
babe.
and
You're
one
saying a
day,
lot.
and one day I will explain the story about my brothers and sisters, so you will understand why I say that, because they were never there for me. You know,
What we talked a little bit about the past. We talked a lot about the past, and we talked a lot about the industry in general. That's one thing. But what is Blade doing now? What's Blade up to now? What's keeping Blade up at night with excitement, or keeping Blade up at night? Well, man, I gotta get what is Blade juggling right now?
okay. So when I got into music, I believed I could make a change. That was what was my driving force. I was seeing other people doing things, and I was thinking I could do something different, and I could make a difference. And everything I do, it was always with the intention of making a difference. I wasn't content with. I would compare that to a conversation I had with a friend last night, where somebody asked me to collaborate with them on a track,
Yeah,
right? And I can't see the reason to collaborate. And the reason why is because this particular person is just putting content up on Instagram and that's it. So we're like, what more is there? You know, do you want to just be another on the list?
yeah,
Or have you got a plan? Are you going to do a video? Are you going to do a proper release? Is there some kind of strategy to it that's going to take you further than Instagram
of
and
course.
social media?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I didn't want to be that guy that was just putting records out. I wanted to be that guy that made a record that people went, oh shit,
yeah,
I need to pay
meaningful.
attention to this guy
Yeah,
for whatever reason. So I had my strategies, and those strategies that I had back then has gone into every year of my life ever since 1986. It has gone into everything that I've done. You know, whether I go swimming, whether I go on holiday, there's always got to be some kind of plan to it.
yeah,
It's not just a case of let's just do it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't do things off the cuff like that. I do a lot off the cuff, but when it's potential life changing. I'm also one of these guys that believes every 7 years you change as a person. So before the 7 years turns in and it's coming up, you need to start analyzing months ahead who the next person is you're going to be
Yeah.
and why you're going to be that person. You understand?
Let me ask you a question. That being the case, where there's a cycle of maturity that a human being goes through, talk to me a little bit about your latest one. What have you been noticing over the past 10 years that you could say has been different about Blade? In what way do you feel like, because Blade as a mature a person, a mature human being, there are many things that we see in life that um, cause our perspective to improve or change about one thing or another. Touch briefly on that, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the person that I've always been is the person that I am today. The person that I am today is the person that believed in a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I always go in there believing until you show me reasons not to believe. So if I say to you, I get you up on stage and you freeze, then I'm not pulling you up on stage the next time. 'Cause you froze.
That's fair.
Yeah. If I pull you up on stage when I'm in the charts and I'm performing and I've got 2, 3, 4,000 people watching, and I pull you up on stage and you're going off on one. So I'll give you an interesting story. I said this in an interview with a guy called Capo, dope MC, right? So I went to Nottingham to do a show one time, and I saw Capo outside and I was talking to him, and I invited him up on stage, and he brought another guy along that I didn't know at the time. And when he brought this other person up on stage, I've given Capo the mic and gone, yeah, go for
Do
it,
your thing.
right? And he went off, and I'm like, dope. And I'm like, I feel sorry for the other guy that's going to take the mic after. I literally thought, nah, he ain't going to be it. And then he came on and he was like even better. And I'm like,
Wow, that's a
shit.
blessing. Yeah.
Like, it was, and you know what happened? I remember they came to give me the mic and I just said, nah, carry on. And I sat down and I just watched them for a little while because they were that dope, you know? So that's, and both of them have got wicked reputations in the UK hip hop scene for what they do. Capo and Scorsese, yeah? Both of them, dope MCs, sick. No one can say nothing about them, you know? But the person that I am is the same person that was there. All it is maybe I've got a bit more hard-headed because I've seen the entertainment business go backwards in terms of quality control. Say for example, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we were getting certain movies where the storylines were great, but it wasn't cars blowing up, helicopters, whatever. Whereas
right.
now, we're getting loads of action, but no story. You understand?
Completely.
Right. So what's happened is everyone's looking for the drama. Everyone's looking for cars and helicopters exploding, but no one's looking to see two lions walking in the jungle.
Yeah, the
You know?
story.
Right, the story. Why are they walking that way? Why are they carrying somebody else's cub in their mouth? And you know what I mean? All them kind of things.
Brother, that's what made hip hop meaningful. That's what made hip hop meaningful when I was growing up, and that's what will still make hip hop meaningful today. If there's an artist out there that knows how to tell a story, and that story be relevant. I mean, maybe not specifically relevant to me, but relevant in terms of the time, or relevant in terms of just maybe something existential, or just relevant. Period. And I think storytelling is a okay. So let's go back. Let me go back a little bit to the single Lyrical Maniac, because you told a story in that, and I'm sure that is probably like exemplary, or an example of just the way you deliver, or the way you choose to tell stories. And we're talking now about storytelling in general. So it just gives me the impression that it almost gives me the impression that there's something that I'm missing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because every story has a unique shape to it that has its own specific meaning that applies to its own specific audience or crowd. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying? Could you comment on that a little bit?
What do you mean by something missing?
Well, because to me, if I don't know the story, then that's what's missing. And a lot of the art, like you're saying, that's coming out right now is about the fluff. It's about the explosions. It's about something, you know what I mean, something that is somewhat entertaining, but something without substance. And maybe that's what I'm saying that I'm missing.
Okay. So Lyrical Maniac, I wouldn't necessarily say there was a story.
All right.
Like in the early days when we were making records, as not fully educated on how to make a record,
Okay.
or how to put product out there, what do we say, and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. We're
yeah.
still learning. Part of the process of putting records out was still in the learning process, but it was a raw vibe. It was a raw feeling.
Yeah.
We weren't necessarily trying to get stories out, because we were about the flow, the vibe,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we would drop little one-liners like tapping on the table, something like that. That's a story. I'm in the canteen in the college, basically tapping on tables while everyone else is buying food they can afford and I can't.
That's a story in of
That's
itself.
a story in itself,
Yeah.
right? So what used to happen is I used to tap on the tables and whatever, and sure enough, someone would always buy me a sandwich or something. You know what I mean? It's all those kind of things. So yeah, big up to Morris, Stanford, Myrtle, Sandra, all of you. Big up all of you lot. You were all there from supporting in the early days. And yeah, just what I'm saying is, when you're young, you're not necessarily caught up in the story, but you're caught up in the vibe. You get what I mean?
Yeah, completely. And in fact, let me tell you something that I'm not missing. During the course of what we have been discussing, you don't hesitate to shout out the people that you love, the people that has had meaning to you, the people that has been a part of your journey. And I think that's storytelling.
Yeah.
That you, at this point in your career, in this place where you are right now, still willing to show the love and the appreciation for the people that have been there, that have been supportive of you, despite having to be a loner in some ways, shape, or form, and carve your own path as a pioneer in UK hip hop.
I'm not afraid to say there are people that I'm not mentioning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I respect that.
And the reason why, because as time went on, I realized that certain people were just there because of what they could benefit from being there, right? And one person that I need to mention, because he was completely the opposite, and he was there just because he was into what we were doing, and he's been like a brother ever since, is my DJ who lives out in Belgium. At the time, he was my DJ Grasshopper. He's like a brother from another mother. He stood by me all the way. We just had a conversation 2 days ago, and we talk regularly. That's the kind of people you need in your life, because when there's 1,000 people that disagree with you, but there's one person of that caliber agreeing with you, that's enough to keep you going.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You understand?
Yeah.
So we go back again to when I was young and all the rejection. There was a time when, it's like I felt like the white people didn't accept me and the black people didn't accept me. Yeah, it was a weird time. It was like, where do I fit in? I have to say this. Where do I fit in? And yeah, I had friends amongst the kids in the school and whatever. But I noticed as soon as people knew that I was a good footballer, or I was a fast runner, or I was really good at tennis, or I was beating everybody at table tennis, or I was beatboxing and getting the attention of everybody when I was rapping and beatboxing and breakdancing, all of a sudden my friend circle grew. And where once upon a time I felt like the white guys didn't want to know me, or the black guys or the Indians or whatever didn't want to know me, now I've got too many options. Everybody wants to know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a shame that the world we live in doesn't just accept you for you, that you always have to validate yourself. How about giving people an opportunity and letting them see what they do before you shut them out?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It
And
shouldn't
then-
be so performance based.
Right.
Appreciation
Right.
shouldn't always be so of
Right.
performance.
But
based.
I also feel like, even when they don't deliver, it doesn't mean you have to cut them off like that. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because every time you do that, someone's getting more and more hurt. Yeah? And there's not many people that I know that have got the mind strength that I've got, the willpower that I've got to rise above that. Like I said, I know people that have committed suicide
Yeah.
over things like this. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to make it doom and gloom, but
No, you're
it
talking about
happens.
reality. You're talking about, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. There are people who are watching this podcast that have been, how should I say, encouraged by the things that you're saying.
And again, we stick on the subject of like the early days, what nurtured me into becoming this independent person. I said it earlier, I had no choice. Yeah? When you're reaching out to 50 people, 60 people, right? And you just feel like nobody's listening. I did a track called Reflection. And the reason I did that track, Reflection, is because at one point I bought a mirror and I used to talk to myself in that mirror because I found that I was the only person who wasn't going to lie to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I listened to that record a few days ago, and there was certain lines that stuck with me. Make a plan, stick to it, follow it, see it through. Never change your mind for nobody, no matter what they tell you. Keep your head strong. Stay on the path you're on. The future's looking bright now that the past is gone. Right? And when I listen to that, it's like everything that I'm building up to with regards 521. And, it's not always in a great place because it's difficult to get people that are reliable. It's difficult to get people that are serious. It's difficult. Not everyone's going to have the same
Vision, same
not necessarily
drive.
not necessarily the same vision. Forget the vision. The thing is, like when I was doing music, I wasn't working. I gave everything up because I believed in it. I became homeless because I believed in it. Yeah. I get people that go, "Oh, I'm working on Friday. Can't do that." Like, yo, you know what? If you believe in this, then
You're gonna
you would
make a
risk everything.
sacrifice. Yeah, man.
Someone said to me, "But you didn't have kids." And I've got kids. I'm like, what are you talking about? I had a kid when I became homeless. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that you have to go through that
No,
path.
I'm not saying,
but I'm
but
saying if you're not
the
going to...
dedication was
if you're not
there
gonna
throughout.
dedicate,
Yeah.
if you're not going to dedicate yourself the way you should, then you shouldn't expect the results.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you don't get those results, don't be mad at anyone else, because you didn't believe in yourself to give everything else up.
Ladies and gentlemen, what more could be said? Blade, it's been a pleasure having you
And you-
here, man. And this won't be your last time on this stage with me, man.
There's so much more I can say, bro. So much more.